Many stories have been told about the kingdom of God. Parables were narrated, analogies were made, and yet there remain many untold stories about His kingdom, stories that are written not by His divine hand, but by mortals who are capable of erring. One of these is the story of the Order of Servants of Mary in the Philippines, a story nurtured by faith and dedication, tested by fire of difficulties and temptations, and enlivened by the inspiration of Mary, servant and Mother of God. And as most stories would begin, once upon a time, in 1233, in the faraway Florence, Italy, 7 rich men decided to reform their society through prayer and good deeds. Finding the pearl of great price and inspired by the Blessed Mother Mary, they left their families and business for the sake of the kingdom of God and went to live outside the city wall of Florence. Their life was one of prayer, simplicity, and closeness to the poor. Eventually, they became known as the Servants of Mary. Some years later, they moved to Montesinario, where they lived in great austerity and contemplation. Here, others came to join them. In that sacred spot, as tradition tells us, the Blessed Virgin Mary herself gave them their black habit in honor of her sorrows. In the year 1249, they were recognized as a religious order, living by the rule of St. Augustine. Then they moved back to the cities to found communities of prayer and service under the guidance of Our Lady. More than 700 years later, they would come to the Philippines to plant the seed of what we know now as the St. Peregrine Philippine Vicariate.
The idea of founding a Servite community in the Philippines started in 1982 after the long trip of Father Hector Turini to various Asian countries such as Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, China, and the Philippines. He proposed to Father Tarcisio Roffi and I if we could be part of a team of Servite friars who would open a new foundation in one of the countries he visited.
During their deliberation, Father Turini suggested Pakistan and Bangladesh, while Father Tarcisio expressed his desire for a new foundation of the province in Eastern Europe, particularly in Poland. After having asked information about Pakistan, Bangladesh, and the Philippines, Father Hilary decisively suggested for a new foundation in the Philippines, citing the richness of vocation here. The 3 friars then unanimously chose the Philippines. They were joined by Father Gerardo Maestrami a little later.
There had been long discussion in the province on having a new foundation. Some friars were favorable, but many were against it. Finally, in the 1983 provincial chapter, the province decided, with a very slim majority, to open a new foundation in the Far East, particularly in the Philippines. The provincial Father Giuseppe Benassi and Father Gerardo Maestrami made an exploratory trip to the Philippines.
The two met with then Archbishop of Manila, Jaime L. Cardinal Sin, who was very favorable to the idea of having a community of Servite friars in his big archdiocese with about 10 million inhabitants. On August 22, 1984, feast day of St. Philip Benizi, Fathers Maestrami, Turini, and Roffi arrived in Manila. It was an unfavorable time because the Philippines was in the midst of a political turmoil as a result of the assassination of Senator Benigno Aquino Jr. a year earlier. Father Hilary arrived on September 25, and when they decided to take a parish, Jaime L. Cardinal Sin entrusted to them a territory nearby the Our Lady of the Abandoned Parish at the southern periphery of Muntinlupa, that is Barangay Tunasan. October 1985, Father Roffi was installed as the first parish priest of the new parish, which was dedicated under the protection of Saint Peregrine Laziosi, a patron saint for cancer patients. Father Gino M. Leonardi arrived in 1986 to become the master of the first batch of pre-novices. He was a big help in formation. Likewise, his outstanding leadership and charisma, many lay organizations were formed, extending Mary's presence in the midst of those who need her most. February 22, 1986, the revolt against the Marcos dictatorship erupted.
The people came, I said to them, we have our friends inside. I don't like them to die because President Marcos said that within 24 hours, hindi sila mag-surrender, we will have to execute them. So we have to do something to help them. And that is why the people came.
Father Ettore, Rofi, Leonardi, and Ilari went to EDSA along with some parishioners to support the soldiers who have turned against Marcos.
I,
Corazon Cojuanco Aquino,
Corazon Cojuanco Aquino,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear.
By the end of 1988, the St. Mary of the Servants Formation House in Tunasan was fully constructed. Cardinal Sin blessed it, and the friars moved in from their rented house in Villa Carolina. The first year of the novitiate formation started on May 15, 1988, with Father Tarcisio Rofi as master of the novices. They rented a house in the hilly area of San Pedro Laguna. In August 1988, Father Giuseppe arrived and stayed with them. The professed house was finished in 1993. On the first days of June, it was occupied by the professed friars. The entire construction task of the professed house had been the work of the province, with Father Paulo M. Earthler, prior provincial, as head. On January 22, 1995, Father Alfredo Biong became the first Filipino Servite priest. The construction of the shrine started on the first days of January 1997. The major part of the construction was realized with the financial assistance of Mancini of Rome and with the help of the different communities of the province and of the parishioners and friends of Saint Peregrine in the Philippines. On the same year, Father Gino left the Philippines for a mission area in Uganda. The Filipinos were saddened by his decision, but thinking of how he could be more productive in the vineyard of God, they bade him goodbye and wished him good luck. He has left a precious legacy, particularly in the field of formation. The OSM Foundation in the Philippines was erected as a delegation in 1998 with Father Tarcisio Rofi as the first provincial delegate. On October 28, 1999, Father Gregorio M. Obejas was appointed as first Filipino parish priest of the shrine. He is now a missionary in Uganda.
Working in Uganda as a missionary, I would say it is interesting and it is relevant and challenging. Working as a missionary in Uganda, it means to open new foundations where forming young Ugandans, Servite missionaries, to be the protagonist in the work of mission, in the work of evangelization. It will be them who will evangelize really, wholly and totally Africa and Uganda.
When Father Tarcisio died on February 17, 2001, the feast day of our first Holy Founders, Father Rhett was elected as the first Filipino provincial delegate. Every year, as a tradition, together with the lay groups and congregations of sisters affiliated to the order, they gather as one family to strengthen their bond as they celebrate the Epiphany. talks of becoming a vicariate started at the break of 2000, but it was only in a General Assembly in March 2003 that the request was decisively formalized. The 2003 provincial chapter approved the decree of erection of the Philippine Vicariate after having been a delegation for about 5 years. Father Rhett was elected as the first Vicar Provincial with an absolute majority on the first casting of ballots. The chapter was held from May 31 until June 5, 2004. The capitulars extended their gratitude to the Blessed Virgin Mary through hymns and prayers for being with them for 20 years. They likewise affirmed their loyalty and dedication to the Order of Servants of Mary. It was just the beginning of another phase in the life of the friars of the Servants of Mary in the Philippines. Faithful to the tradition, they will always go into the deep and introduce the kingdom of God to those who need His love, and at the same time, through their ways and deeds, prolong the presence of Mary in the heart of the faithful.
How lovely is your dwelling place, O Lord, mighty God.
With the help of the different lay organizations that belong to the family of the St. Peregrine Philippine Vicariate, the Filipino Servites can now claim that the seed once planted by the Italian friars in Philippine soil has already reached its maturity. They will move on and continue to spread the kingdom and love of God.
I think the key to realize our common vision as servants of Mary in the Philippines is to reinforce our commitment to serve the Lord and our brothers in our day-to-day life. As Servites, we are called to bring compassion and love to a wounded humanity by standing at the foot of the cross with Mary.
The Vicariate expects Filipino friars to have the courage to found the order in other parts of Asia. Indonesia and China are just a step away. These countries expect them. This was one of our initial ideas even before we first came here. The Far East, the order expects that the Philippines will be the center of Servite expansion in Asia.
We can all make kingdoms of God here on earth. It all starts with a seed.